I invited 100,000 random Minecraft players to a building competition, and they had exactly 7 days to build whatever cool, crazy, unique things they could think of. And I'm gonna give $50,000 to whoever's build is the best.
If you're a regular watcher of Mr.Beast, then you might already be familiar with his most recent challenge video, the 100,000 player building competition. In this video, 100,000 different Minecraft players competed against one another for a chance to win $50,000. Luckily, I was able to compete. Let me show you my time on the server. Also, please subscribe. It literally takes less than a second. As soon as I spawned in my plot, I immediately began taking measurements for my prison, which was the building I chose. And I didn't want to build the entire thing just to find out that all 4 towers were completely off-center. So with a little bit of counting, I knew exactly where to start building. Now right here, I thought I was being really smart because I had an idea that I thought would be able to cheat the system and I would be able to get done a lot sooner than everyone else. Water or lava, they would not move from their source block. So I realized that I had to place every single block by hand. And pretty soon, I was almost done with the very first watchtower, with just a few things on the side, and to build the manning post on the top. I even decided to add a little beacon as an extra touch. Soon after I had built the first tower, I had a spark of inspiration. One way or another, most people have seen beacons used as security lasers before. I decided that for my prison, I wanted to do the exact same, but sadly, nothing in this world comes for free. So I had to start by clearing out all the dirt, then the stone, then placing the iron, then placing the beacons in glass, and finally, I was done with one wall. I had 3 more to do. So I just rinsed and repeated it 3 more times. But as soon as I finished the security lasers, I immediately became suspicious of all the other competitors around me, worried that they might plagiarize my hard-earned work. So I immediately covered it up, and then I began working on my wall. But after 2 minutes, I got bored of that, so I went back and started working on my second tower. A few more minutes and I got bored of that and I went back to my wall. And then back to my tower all over again. In case you didn't know this, I'm what a lot of people call me a butterfly thinker. As in, my head will just jump from one thing to another before the other one is even completed. This is about how the entire project went. Going back to work on my wall, and then changing the outer decorations of my tower, and then changing the inside of Tower 2 to match Tower 1. Pretty soon after a few more rounds of wall building, I had laid down the general area for my entrance, and I continued to add to it. And then I decided, you know what? I really hate switching back and forth. It's driving me insane. So I'm just gonna bust out Towers 3 and 4 real fast. After I finished the main bases for all 4 of the towers, I began to expand the flooring to accommodate the scanning center, which would be right at the entrance. After expanding it enough, I created the hallways and staircases leading up to what would be the armory and the warden's office. Then, after finishing the main base and infrastructure of what would be the armory, I finished Wall 1. And after adding all the stone walls to the towers, I'm not gonna lie, it was starting to look pretty good. And at this point, I was starting to finish off the other 3 walls. But each wall is the exact same, and you guys already watched me build one wall, so let's just skip ahead a little bit. I made passageways for the guards to use to get from one tower to the next, and then I began covering it up. Then it was time to start with the bathrooms. I'd placed 2 on each side of the visitation center. One for males, one for females. Not that it matters in Minecraft, but I wasn't sure what to do about the flooring, and I experimented with a lot of different patterns before deciding on a checkered one. I always was rather fond of it. So I began filling each side with white concrete, and then black concrete. After that, I wanted to keep the feel of the bathroom to be a pristine, clean area. I decided to use quartz columns mixed with gray concrete. And to keep with the whole pristine feel of it, I used polished quartz for the top. And then right there, I finished the main structure for the front of the prison. I made a new wall blocking off the bathrooms and the main entryway because the courtyard I decided was going to go right in the center. And then after that, I began working on the visitation center. You know, where a prisoner can come in and meet a loved one and communicate through phone through a glass window. That sort of stuff. The visitation center also helped me to realize how dark it was inside the main area of the prison. So I went through a couple of lights and then decided on sea lanterns, because there honestly is no cleaner light block. Then I decided on blue soulfire torches to put in the armory to help set the mood, and placed a white ceiling over the main walkway. But then a problem hit me. I had no idea what I was going to do for the top of the prison. What, should I just put a giant tower there? Should I just make it flat and boring? I would just make a landing zone for helicopters and airplanes. Not only would it fit in well, but it was something that was pretty easy to do. After that was finished, I began lighting up the rest of the prison and the passageways in between the walls with classic torches, and then began to mark and plan out the 2 prison cell sectors, one on the left side of the prison, one on the right. Finally, I began building the cafeteria, which would take place at the very back of the prison, in front of the courtyard. I wanted to take advantage of the new copper block for the ceiling, even if it didn't fit in that well. And when it was done, I gotta say, the building definitely stood out the most, with its contrasting brown and blue colors. But honestly, if there's any building that's gonna stand out, it had better be the cafeteria. 1, 2, skip a few, and I was halfway done. One sector of the prison cells was already completed, and I just had a few more cells left on the other side. Instead of having prison cells on both sides, since it would be way too small for that, I decided to do a few layers and have 3 cells stacked up on top of each other. Pretty soon, I was completely done, except for some final touches of iron bars on the rest of the cells. Then I did the same thing for what I did with the other cell sector, which is I replaced all the grass with stone bricks and added a roof of smooth basalt. Then I began adding a wall separating the visitor center from the rest of the courtyard. It may be just for show, but I didn't want to make it look like any prisoners could escape there without any permission. Then I began getting rid of all the grass in the area and began replacing it with iron blocks for the floor, like I had done for the rest of the prison. But for the cafeteria, I did something a little different. I wanted to make it look like it had a marble floor, so I chose the next best block for it. I went with the new calcite block, which to be honest is just a smoother looking diorite. It doesn't have as many black splotches, and I just thought it looked really nice. And after I'd finished the main structure of the front of the prison, next came the fun part. Decorating. Carpets there, lanterns there, amethyst there, replacing that with more lanterns, and pretty soon, I was all done after adding the final touches. Then I moved on to the armory. I'm not going to show me placing down all these armor stands, because it's just the same thing over and over again, but basically, the guard suits were all set out. Then I began filling the room with what an armory should have. Weapons. And utility items, of course, but mostly weapons. Sticks for batons, spyglasses, sharp batons also known as swords, firework crossbow for a flare gun, arrows for a normal gun, and of course, some elite guard outfits. Then I just began adding signs to the front of the chest, some dye, and glow ink sacs just to really make it pop. After I finished with the armory, I went straight to the cafeteria, my favorite. I began using that long table that people go down and collect food onto their trays. You know, the one used in schools and prisons. In my views, they're both the exact same. It really doesn't matter. I added a little bit of decoration using item frames and copper blocks, but that's it. Then I just added item frames to the top of the tables that represent the food trays that people could grab, ranging from bread, chicken, apples, and even cakes at the end. Of course, I had to add storage in the back to make it a lot more realistic. This food isn't coming from space. It has to come from somewhere. I added cobblestone tables in the corner because courts just looked way too nice. We're not giving them good stuff, this is a prison. And then after that, I just went crazy adding armor stands over the entire prison. This took a lot longer than you expect because there was a little plugin that made it so you can only place down 15 armor stands within 1 hour. And if I broke one, still doesn't matter, I can only place down 15. After I was almost done with the entire cafeteria, surprise, I got bored again. So I decided to work on the prison cells and their interior decoration. So I gave each prisoner a bed, a cauldron to use however he wants, a torch for light, and a clock above the door. Then I decided to finish off the cafeteria by adding all the armor stands. On one side of the table, I added the cafeteria workers in their white uniforms, and on the other side of the table, I added the prisoners in their orange uniforms. After putting on all their armor, the only thing left I needed to do was give them heads, of course. It may not be a necessary object, but I like to add it anyway. And after that was completed, the hour was up, so I went crazy adding armor stands everywhere again. And after I was done with the cafeteria, there weren't that many places left that needed decorating, but there was one. Technically two. The bathrooms. One on each side of the visitor center. It took me a while to really set these up and build them, because I wasn't sure what blocks I wanted to use, or how to set them up and the stalls inside of them. After a while, I was able to choose some blocks I was happy with, and arrange them in an orderly fashion. So, at the very end of it, I was content. After I'd finished the cafeteria, there was really only one thing left. The courtyard. I started by adding a wall around the edges, and I topped it with cobwebs to represent barbed wire. Then I had a track running all around it for prisoners to run laps. And then I added what every good prison courtyard needs, a basketball court. I played with this for a little bit, first making it too thin, and then too wide, but after a while, I was happy with the size, and I made the basketball hoops using more cobwebs and signs. Then I added my prime jewel, the Rock'em Sock'em Robots Arena. I don't even need to explain this, but all I have to say is that if you did not grow up with this, I am sorry, but you had no childhood. You had nothing. And then I began building the working out area in the center of the courtyard, which contained punching bags, weightlifting benches and weights, a treadmill, and mats. After I'd finished building the punching bags, I started working on the weightlifting tables and their respective weights, using slabs, full blocks, ender rods, chains, and even using a little bit of redstone for iron trap doors to make a unique looking dumbbell. And then I just replaced all the grass in the floor and replaced it with blackstone bricks to better suit the vibe. And then I added the one singular treadmill. It was definitely a lot bigger than I wanted it to be, and I feel like there was a way I could have done it a lot better, but for the time I had, I was happy of how it turned out in the end. I even added a weight table in the back containing dumbbells made out of ender rods and wither skeleton skulls to better fit the picture. And then all I had left to do was replace the floor under the Rock'em Sock'em robots. After I changed that flooring, I just needed to change the color of the track really fast to better look like a track instead of a street. But then the courtyard was completely finished. And of course, I had to fill the entire courtyard with armor stands. Now, since the courtyard was finished, all that was left for me to do was add the final touches to the top of the prison. I added 2 different airplane runways and 2 different helipads and I gotta say, it made the entire thing pop just that much better. But the ceiling also made me realize something. It was not big enough. So, I raised the walls up by about 5 blocks all around all sides. And then I placed actual walls on top of those walls. And then I placed barbed wire on top of those walls. And since I had raised up the walls, now I had to raise up the towers as well. So I raised each tower up by about 5 blocks as well. Then I went around adding armor stands to all the walls and all the towers to make it look like guards on their outposts. Then I was adding the final touches to the top of the towers, including all the beacons, that I began to think that the walls looked really bare. I didn't want to go through and completely change them, so instead I just added a layer of black stone around all the edges, and then within those layers of black stone, I added a bunch of iron bars. And in the end, I can definitely tell it was the right decision, because the entire thing looked absolutely amazing. And now, with the entire thing done, the only thing that was left was to turn on the lasers. Thank you guys so much for watching. Even though I didn't even come close to even appearing on the Mr.Beast video, this was still so fun to participate in, and I'm glad I did it. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. I really want to hit 100 subscribers by the end of the year. I'll see you around.